Please, I can't sleep.
It's time to listen to Courtney at last on the Ramblings of an Insomniac podcast.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Ramblings of an Insomniac. I am Courtney. Hello. Good. Yeah, we're on morning. It's almost 11 in the morning. And let me just say, well, first I'll start off with what has been keeping me up? What has been keeping me up? Lordy, always a loaded question, right? So let me start by saying this. The new owners, my new bosses, were amazing enough to give us a paid vacation. They gave us 4 days in addition to our 3, because we all work 4/10s, so we have 3 days off. So we ended up getting our times that we normally would work. Put this way, we got 4 days paid off in addition to our 3 days that we get. So we got 7 days off in a row. And it was great because it was much, much needed. It was much needed time off because my family in particular, 3 of us work there. So, and we have different days off, which means we never have a day off together. We never have a time that we can go on vacation together, a time to really spend unless it's after work. And right now, one of us is holding down the fort until one of us has to live there, be there 24/7, and hold down the fort until the new owners move down. And so it's very hard. We can't. It's not hard. We just cannot have time off together, and certainly not a vacation. So we were absolutely looking forward to this and so stoked. And we knew the weather probably was going to be crummy, but we're from the coast, so we didn't care. We can get used to that. So we were going to originally have, my fiance was going to stay home for the first couple of days, hold down the fort with all of our menagerie of animals. Someone needed to watch them, and we unfortunately couldn't find somebody that was willing to watch all of our animals. So that kind of sucked, which means yet again, we didn't all get to do something together. But both of my sons and my oldest son's 3 kids, and so my grandkids and all of us decided, we all spent time together. And our plan was to go ride dune buggies, to sandboard, to go on a hike, to play board games, and just really spend time, quality time as a family, which we haven't got to do in years. And I mean years. And so we were just excited. And the place that we went has a lake. And let me tell you, I ended up sitting in front of that lake. There's a boat ramp and there's a dock. And I parked my car in front of that lake and did a podcast. It was a 47-minute podcast about the fact that I was contemplating suicide, but the fact that I would never, ever in a million years want to do that to my kids or my grandkids or my fiance, because that's so selfish. It's extraordinarily selfish to leave your family in the wake of that. That's not fair to them. They're the ones that have to be there to pick up the pieces, and you just leave. But and of course, I'm not going to do that on our family vacation. And I really don't want to do that to my family. That's just shitty to do to my family. And plus, I want to be here. I want to see what the future looks like and what the future holds for my family. I want to see, I'm cheating myself out of a great life because I'm exhausted and sad and angry, and that's not fair, But to be honest, I did. I sat there and I cried and dumped my heart out about the fact that so we were there, we were going to be there for 4 days, 3 nights. And like I said, we had all these plans to bond. And my youngest son, for the first 2 out of the 4 days, decided to just really mess it up and make things extraordinarily difficult and be incredibly, incredibly hurtful and say a bunch of things that are so unforgivable and cruel. And I just got tired of it because this is about the 20 millionth time. So I was doing a podcast at the time, just kind of talking about the fact that as a parent or as anybody that's lived with addicts, but especially even as a parent, how hard it is to watch your own child struggle so much and try everything you can imagine to help. And it doesn't help. And then I realized that the biggest thing I probably need to do is let him fall. He has to fall, and I cannot catch him. He has to hit rock bottom, or things are probably not going to change. And people will say that to you, and you're like, yeah, I know. But as a parent, it is very, very, very hard because you're like, well, what if there is no rock bottom? What if he is one of those statistics? What if the times that I see the homeless people on the side of the road and they're living, in tents and on the streets, and I see them and I think, God, that's somebody's mother, father, son, daughter, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, cousin, friend, whatever. That's someone's family member, that's somebody's friend. And that's awful to know that they don't have that family member and they have to just go, I hope that they're okay. Obviously, they're not okay. They're an addict. And sometimes addicts don't get better. And I would love to be like, well, gosh, if they just have all the love in the world and they have all the support in the world and they have all the help in the world, then surely they're going to get better. But the problem is they have to recognize that they need help, and then they have to want help, and then they have to follow through. And all of those things, don't always add up. And I need to follow through, though. It also takes the person on the other end to follow through, because if addicts know that you're always going to be there, sometimes they'll just always expect you to be there, and therefore they will never get better. Unfortunately, always being there and always being supportive and always helping is not the best thing. Sometimes the best thing you can do to help and the best support you can give is not being there when they fall and not catching them so that they have to do it on their own. And I know this. But again, when you are a parent, it is hard, especially when this is your second child you've gone through and your millionth family member that's an addict. I come from a very, very long line of addicts, and my real biological father died from a cocaine overdose, which caused him to have a heart attack and die on my 9th birthday, which is the same birthday that my dog died. I think I've mentioned this, but I also have a stepfather. I've had 3 dads, of course, a biological dad and 2 stepfathers, but the last stepfather I have is who I call my dad, is who I consider my dad. I didn't refer to him by his first name or anything. I called him dad. But he died essentially from being an alcoholic. Being an alcoholic took a toll on everything in his body. And unfortunately, my whole family has come from a long line of drinking. Drinking has been their drug of choice. And then my oldest son, drinking and gambling were his vices. And my youngest son, same thing, drinking and gambling. And it's sad because I think that my son started out like everybody, innocent enough. But when you have a lot of demons, or you're insecure, or you're sad and angry inside, you look for something, of course, to fill that. And for my kids, it was alcohol and gambling. And now my oldest has been clean and sober from drinking for a year and 8 months. And I'm so proud of him. And he has just been really, really doing well and working so hard at just he's such an amazing, amazing father. And Now I'm seeing it with my youngest, and my fiance had a kid staying here that we were trying to help. But unfortunately, he was a massive alcoholic, and he's younger than both of my kids, and he is already on his third DUI, and he is 25 years old. 25 years old, and he's had 3 DUIs. He's running from the law, and he's running from state to state because he has all kinds of warrants out for his arrest. He eluded the police. He's gone from house to house, and everybody keeps kicking him out, including his own family, because not only does he drink a lot, but he causes a lot of issues for the people that he's living with. He's got a lot of problems, and he makes a lot of excuses. He blames everybody else but himself. Even though he has had a gigantic support system, people have bent over backwards, including my family, to go above and beyond to help them in every way imaginable, offering to pay for counseling, offering to drive him to counseling, offering to pay for rehab, drive him to rehab, offer to take him to and from work, trying to get him a job, giving him a place to live, saying, hey, you can come to us at any time of the day and night. But he just is an addict and couldn't respect those boundaries because, we just said, look, you just can't drink on the property. And he came home and almost ran over my cat once. He came within millimeters of running into my garage. He broke my fence. He went down in my lower property. It's all muddy down there. He tore it up after I just planted grass, tore it all up, and then proceeded to mow down my fence that we had just put up. He had the cops here twice because of fighting with his girlfriend so much that my neighbors could hear, and they called the cops. It was a big shit show in the middle of the night. He got in a wreck on the street that I live on. Cops showed up. And so it's just been, my life has been watching people drink and fight, fist fight, and throw things at each other, having cops called and making sure that cigarettes are put out so that the house doesn't burn down. And just always being around. There was always major parties at my house. And as a kid, keep in mind, I'm, 7 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old, and I'm around drinking and smoking cigarettes and pot, and just always having drunk adults being loud and obnoxious, passing out. I would wake up and there would just be bottles everywhere and people that I didn't know passed out all over. And as a kid, again, I wanted to make sure cigarettes were put out so that the house didn't burn down. And now I'm going through it with my kids, and it's just exhausting as the person that is, Gwenny, come on, good girl. Sorry. It's exhausting as the person that is on the receiving end. And again, I know addicts aren't trying to make other people's life miserable. I get that, but it does. And it needs to be said, it does. And the people on the receiving end, although we understand and although we get it, it's really fucking exhausting, even when it's your own kids. And you start getting pissed and resentful and angry and hurt, even with your own kids. So I sat there at this lake just staring at it, and honest to God, it took everything in me. And I just thought, I can't have my grandson, I can't have my sons, and I can't have my fiance and my animals not have me around just because I am exhausted and pissed and angry and hurt. But I did a long podcast about that and how it's understandable that people want to go to that length, but it's, of course, incredibly selfish to do so, and it doesn't solve anything. It creates more problems for the people that are living. And I want to see how my family turns out. I want to see how my oldest son and I want to see what happens with my younger son. I want to see my grandkids go older. I want to be here with my fiance and create our life. And, so on that note, I did not do the podcast. It was just a little too deep, a little too raw. And again, I started this because I wanted to be very genuine and open and talk about things that I think need to be talked about. But I think I got a little too dark. And I don't know. I feel like I could say things and get the point across without being so dark. I mean, I was bawling hysterically and snotting all over the place. And again, there's something to be said about that because those were my true emotions. And I don't want to hide my true emotions. I'm not trying to be fake right now and act like everything's okay. And that's not at all. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Like I said, I'm exhausted. That's a huge part of what's keeping me up. Stress and worry and hurt and anger and fear and anxiety and for my youngest son and just thinking, God, I hope he finds his path. And the fact that I'm going to have to make that choice of letting go. No one tells you when you have kids that that's something you might have to do. And it's a hard choice. And I'm having a hard time making it, but I know it's best. And then I talk myself out of it by saying, well, what if just this one time he just needs me to do this one last time. He needs to live with me a little bit longer. He needs to have my support a little bit longer. He needs me to take care of this a little bit longer. And then I think it's been long enough. I keep saying this. I always say this. I have to just like a Band-Aid. I've got to just do it. I don't know. So that's keeping me up. And everybody out there who has had to deal with alcoholics, you just kind of get where actions speak louder than words. You get tired of the apologies. You get tired of the I'll do better. You're just like, yeah. So just do it. Just do better. I don't want to hear it anymore. That's all you talk about. And again, I'm sure that everybody has the best intentions when they say they're going to do something. I know I have. It's not like you're saying it and you have every intention of not doing it. You mean it at the time. But I just get tired of people's words now. Get tired of people not following through with their words. That gets old. Like our politicians. People can't blame Biden anymore. The man, like I said, has dementia. It's really, really not his fault. It's sad. It's cruel. It's insanely cruel that they are parading this man, dragging this man around, souping him up on God knows what kind of medication to try to get him to stay awake for any length of time, to form even just a couple of coherent sentences. That's not fair to him. Let the man be. Let him eat his ice cream and ride his bike and leave him the hell alone. But our politics is exactly why I want to move out of this state. I want nothing more than I feel again like my whole life, it's been my fault. It's been my choice. So I can only blame myself, but I have chosen to make choices based on what is good for my family and wanting to stay around for my family. And I've wanted to move out of Oregon forever. My parents drug me to, I was born in Washington and I lived in Vancouver, and that is a shithole, absolute shithole of a city, Vancouver, Washington. And growing up around Portland, Oregon, also shithole. Portland used to be cool at one point, and now it's turned into a garbage dump. And Oregon's just a garbage dump state. It's beautiful. It's absolutely extraordinarily beautiful. We don't have hurricanes. I mean, Jesus, you get freaking hurricane force winds on the coast, but they're not sustained wind and they're not tropical, so they don't call them hurricanes, but we get some wind, let me tell you. But we don't get hurricanes. We don't have, the sinkholes. We don't have, yes, of course, we're going to have earthquakes. And then, again, in 29 years living on the coast, we've had a couple of tsunami warnings, but they were warnings. So, we get forest fires depending on the part of Oregon you live in. So you have the threat of forest fire or earthquakes, I guess, but we don't have tornadoes and we don't have hurricanes and we don't have crocodiles and snakes in our pipes and stuff. But have never felt like an Oregonian or a West Coast person. I'm more of a Midwest, Southern kind of gal. I want the Midwest or the South, or even like Ohio, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Tennessee. Really looking into Tennessee, really looking into Ohio and Wisconsin, Kentucky. Those are the states I'm very interested in. And maybe even West Virginia, possibly. And you can guess they are Republican states, because I got to tell you, with this craziness going on with our politicians and all of the nonsense going on in this God-forsaken, extremely, extremely left field state, where they don't even care if you can read or do math. But the problem is, as much as I want to move, again, I'm like, but my sons and my grandkids are here and I don't want to leave them. And I'm always, always, always feeling like I have to stay at a job because it makes my boss's life easier, or it makes the customers easier, and the customers trust me, and the customers need me, or my bosses need me, or my family needs me. And so I'm always taking jobs that are best for my family. And that's part of what I signed up for, being a parent. I'm not complaining. And it's what I chose to do. And I'm not complaining, because the reward is I get to be around my family. But now I'm almost 50. And although my grandson and my grandkids are younger, my children are full grown adults. And people do it all the time. They commute, they take planes, and they visit their family on holidays and stuff. And I don't want to be that kind of grandparent where I just see my grandkids and my sons on the holidays and just on vacation. But I also don't want to be the kind of person that's living in resent and staying in a place or at a job that I don't want. I can't live 50 more years of taking care of others. Because again, when you are the product of an alcoholic family, all you do is take care and take care of them and take care of them and take care of yourself, because they're not around to cook you dinner. They're not around to help you with your homework. They're not around to talk to when you're sad or when you're scared, or to be at your bed when you're scared. You have to do it on your own. I've been taking care of myself. Plus, I'm an only child. So I also don't have another sibling to confide in, or to protect me, or me to protect, or whatever. I had to protect myself, feed myself, get myself to school. Nobody went to my parent teacher conferences or watched my sports. I got myself dressed, did my homework. If I had questions, I had neighbors that were really great. I was very fortunate to have a couple of friends that I still to this day know and communicate with, and their family helped raise me. But point being, I've just always cleaned up the messes, cleaned up the broken plates that they throw at each other, clean up puke, clean up cigarette butts, clean up bottles, and suffering the consequences of other people's actions. And then again, I chose to keep doing it. I choose to keep doing it because I love my family and I don't want to be away from them. And now that my oldest son is sober and is doing better, I want to be here for him because he's doing so much better. And the last thing I want to do is move across the country away from him when he doesn't have that support. I want to be that support. And right now, I only live an hour and 15 minutes from him. So I definitely don't want to go across the country. So then I think, well, what if I can have them move with me? He has a company that he could possibly transfer. But then I'm like, now I'm asking him to uproot his kids, which they would have to go to a different school, but they're young. So I think, well, they're young. So now is the best time to do that. But I can't really ask them to do that. So I'm stuck and I don't know what to do because I cannot be in Oregon anymore. I've never, ever, ever, ever wanted to live in Oregon or Washington or California. I cannot stand the West Coast. I hate everything it represents. I can't stand the people here. I mean, I love our customers. I'm very fortunate, and I love, love, love our customers that where I work. They're amazing. But I'm not a fan of Oregonians, Washingtonians, and certainly not California. Which reminds me, I was behind a car the other day and it cracked me up. It was a minivan, and it said they had California license plates, and in the back window they printed out paper that said, "This is a rental. We are not from California." And I thought that was funny because I've mentioned this many times on my podcast. Oregonians have a real bug up their butt about Californians. We don't like them. We don't want them here. We cannot stand them. And when we see California plates, We want nothing more than to ram the back end and ram them all the way back to California and flip them off and run them off the side of the road. Not going to lie. I know that sounds harsh. I know that sounds crazy, but all we want to do is flip you off and say, fuck you, which is insane because California, Washington, and Oregon all have the same politics, all crazy, crazy, crazy left-wing people. But still, you have all the celebrities and all the hoity-toity fakeness of California that's gross. Oregonians are more hippie, bohemian people. Californians are, more plastic, disgusting people. I'm sorry, that's rude. I shouldn't say that. Obviously, not all of California is that way. And I'm being very, very judgy and very rude and lumping a bunch of people because I am not considered a Portlandia person at all. And I live in Oregon. So I realize that not everybody that lives in California is like the Hollywood, plastic, fake, hypocritical, narcissistic, crappy people that they are. I realize there's a lot of lovely, wonderful people that are not narcissistic, not caught up in themselves and the glam and the glitz, and they don't have Botox the crap out of their faces. I get that. And I'm sorry, but we still have this weird thing with Californians. So I thought it was incredibly funny to see that in the back of a car. This car is a rental. We are not from California. But I want to, like I said, love nothing more. I never thought I would ever consider Wisconsin because I cannot stand snow and cold. Never thought it. But man, after looking at property, and knowing that their snow is totally different than the snow here in Oregon. The snow here in Oregon is basically ice falling from the sky, and it's slushy and it's hard. And if you get pelted by it, it hurts. And it's a different kind of cold here. I've been told that from a million people that are from Michigan and Wisconsin and stuff that will say, even Colorado, that will say, look, we have different snow here. If we had snow in those states, like again, Wisconsin, Michigan, like they do in Oregon, they would hate the snow too. And they would not make fun of us because our snow is a whole different thing. It is ice. It's terrible. And so I can handle the powdery stuff, I think, especially if I'm just in a state that isn't insane. I can handle anything. I don't want to be in a democratic state. Not now. It's gone too crazy. I feel like people are starting to finally go, whoa, that's even a little too crazy for me. Wow, that's a little much even for me. That's a lot. Thank God. And then there's still the people that are still going strong. I don't know at what point they're going to go, damn, that's a lot. That's a little much. I can't handle that. That's a little too crazy. I don't know what their breaking point is. Mine was a long time ago when we started making it okay to mutilate children, when we started making it okay to not tell the parents, to not let the parents know that their child is talking about suicide or chopping off their penis or taking medication that could cause a lot of problems. Teachers are not doctors. That's kind of why you have to go to college specifically to be in the medical profession. You don't have to be in the medical profession to be a teacher. So they're two separate things. And also counseling. You're not a psychiatrist when you're a teacher. You may think you are, you may feel like you are, but you aren't. You didn't go to school for it, so stop doing it. You're not a medical doctor and you're not a psychiatrist. You are to educate children. You are to teach them ABCs, learn to read, learn to do math, learn history, accurate history, not the history that you wish happened, not the history that you are pretending like it happened, not made up stuff, but actual history. Back in my day, we even learned how to balance a checkbook. And they had things like wood shop, so you could learn to build. We learned to pay bills, which is what they should have people do now. We even learned how to cook. That wasn't considered a feminist thing or a girly thing. It was like, well, no, that's just called learning how to live on your own. Learning how to pay your bills, learning how to build some things, learning how to cook some things. Those are incredibly important skills. I worked at Job Corps. Job Corps is one of the most amazing things I love it because you learn different trades like carpentry, welding, cooking, being a dental hygienist, being a certified nurse's aide, the seamanship program. These are programs these kids get for free. They get it for free. Taxpayers have to pay it, of course, but I'm okay with paying that. I'm okay with our taxes going to that because these kids in return have to live on campus in a dorm setting, keep their dorms clean. They have curfews. They have to be back at the dorm by 9 o'clock in the evening on weekdays. It was 10 or 11 on the weekends. They weren't allowed to drink, even if you were of age, because it could be 16 to 24 years old that you could be in Job Corps, but you weren't allowed to drink on campus. You could leave campus. You could get a pass on the weekends, not the weekdays, but to leave on the weekends. And you could get a pass, but you had to be a certain like you could be platinum or gold. You had to be a higher standard because that meant you had kept your dorm clean. That meant you haven't gotten in trouble. And so the reward for that is you're allowed to leave campus for the weekends and don't have to be back until Sunday evening. But in return, you got to learn a trade that was incredibly valuable. And you learn it by doing it. You don't just sit in a class and take notes and nod your head. You physically, I love this about Job Corps, you actually get to go at your own speed. So everybody graduates when they're actually ready. They don't just like nowadays in school, they're just like, sure, you pass. Sure, you pass. Even though you can't read, even though you can't speak or read or write English, and even though you can't do basic math, we'll just keep passing you and passing you and passing you. It's not like that. They pass you only when you're ready, only when you can pass your tests. And then you do hands-on. You get to work with your hands. And they are trades like carpentry and welding, which are incredibly, incredibly valuable, and trades that will never go away. We will always need carpenters. We will always need welders. We will always need CNAs and the seamanship program. These are programs that are so valuable and that these kids would have to pay for. And they're learning it by hands-on and not graduating until they actually know how to do the job. That is amazing. My tax dollars can go to that stuff all day long. And that was one of the best jobs I had. I was a residential advisor. I was super young when I worked there. You could be between 16 and 24 to be at Job Corps. At the time I worked there, I was 24. And I thought I was hot shit because I thought I was good looking. And that is when I was divorced at the time. And I hadn't ever not had a boyfriend. I'd always been with somebody or had a boyfriend. So I was single. And, but I had two kids at 24. So I wasn't going out like being a hoe or anything like that, but I was just like, wow, I'm cool. And I had a great job with amazing benefits that paid great money at the time. And well, actually, even still nowadays, really. But I still did jobs that were best for my family, that worked for my family, and not necessarily jobs that I wanted to do. I always put my own dreams and stuff on hold. And there were things that I thought I could be amazing at that I just, I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I would have put back before digital cameras came out. I thought I was a pretty great photographer. And I thought, man, I could have done something with that. Same with travel agents back before the internet came out. I was like, man, I could have opened up a travel agency, real estate, really great at real estate. And I thought, dog trainer and opening up my own boarding facility, these things I could have gotten into that I never did. And these passions that I had that I never followed because I was always trying to make sure that I was available for my kids. And again, I'm not saying that I regret that. I'm not saying, oh, my kids held me back and now I'm all bitter with my kids. Of course not. I love my sons. I chose to do that. I wanted to do that. But now here I am 50 and I'm struggling because, like I said, I don't want to leave my grandkids and I don't want to leave my sons because what if they need me? But then I'm like, what am I going to do? Follow them around and live everywhere they live in case they need me? I can't do that either. So it's keeping me up. I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. I do know I don't want to be in Oregon. And I don't want to be in the West Coast. So if I move, it's going to be a place that I actually want, which unfortunately means either my kids come with, only if they want to. I would never, ever ask them to. I would never beg them to. But I'm not going to lie. It'd be great if they could. It'd be great if it benefited them and it was good for them. It was healthy for them. But I just sit here and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And it is keeping me up. God, there is an airplane in the background, totally video bombing. Just started pouring down rain. It's been so beautiful. Oh, so speaking of, so our vacation. So 4 of the 7 days of my vacation were pretty crappy and awful. Not only did my youngest son just really cause a huge issue the first 2-3 days, but then the last day was great though with all of us. We all got along. It was great. The last day, both of my sons, my grandkids, and my son's girlfriend and I had a great time, and it was great. It kind of redeemed it, and it was a good way to end the vacation. We got to do a lot of stuff as a family, and it was wonderful. And then my fiance and I got to have 3 days together, and it was awesome. I got to spend time on the southern coast of Oregon, which was beautiful because I'm from the northern part of Oregon, the northern coast from Seaside, and Seaside's beach is ugly. Cannon Beach is great. And off of Fort Stevens is great, but Seaside is just, godforsaken town. I hate it. But anyway, and the beach is awful. But we got to spend time in Yachats, and the weather all of a sudden just was like, it was like 60 degrees, which of course is not hot or anything like that. But for the coast, it was 60. It was sunny. I love all the rock formations out there, and we just had a great time. I took my 2 dogs, and one of them has never been to the beach before, and he just absolutely loved it. But my poor fiance was really sick and had been sick while we were gone. That's another reason he couldn't come with us. Not only was he holding down the fort, but he got really sick. But then we all spent time together, and we ended up redeeming it, and it turned out to be pretty great. You guys, I'm doing a podcast here. Hush, quiet. But it turned out to be pretty lovely and much needed. So that was good. That was very good. You don't realize how much you need some time until you get some time, and you're like, oh, and then the thing that sucks up is waking up the next day and having to go back to work, and you're like, but then you're thankful that you have a job. So I'm not going to complain. I'm grateful that I have a job. So those are some things that has been keeping me up. I want to move. I want to get out of here. But now we have new owners, and I feel obligated to them because they, again, if all of us leave, they're losing 75% of their staff. And that's not good. And I know our customers would be super devastated. Holy cow, it's raining. Can you guys hear that? Wow. So I go through all that again. I'm like, oh my God, I can't leave the new owners in a lurch. What are they going to do? That's going to totally screw them. That's going to stress them out. It's going to cause them a lot of stress. And what are they going to do? And oh my gosh, my customers are going to be sad. And they've told me a million times, please don't go. And then, I go through all of that. So then what do I do? Stay in Oregon until I die and be unhappy? All right. So anyway, enough of that Eeyoreness. Those are the things keeping me up. And thanks for letting me share. I genuinely appreciate it. And you guys that listen to me over and over again, man, honest to God, I can't tell you how much it means to me. I do appreciate it. I do genuinely from the bottom of my heart appreciate those of you that have listened to me even one time, even just once, but especially if you've listened to me more than once, and if you've told friends and now your friends are listening. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. It means the world. To everybody out there trying to do their best and kind of living their life for others, it is admirable and it is sweet and it is kind, but it's sort of like the fire when you're not fire. It's sort of like when you're on an airplane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Sometimes you have to take care of yourself first. It's a cliche. Everybody talks about it. I'm not saying anything that people don't already know. This is common knowledge. I get it. But just remember to do that self-care. Self-care is important. Can't live your life for others. You should always be humble. You should always check yourself. You should always, of course, strive to be a good person. But there's times it's okay to be selfish. It's not even being selfish. It's just time for yourself is important. So, hey, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Ramblings of an Insomniac. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time.